I made my entire military salary almost in like one deal in 3 weeks.
Hmm. If you're in the right neighborhoods, you're not getting shot at, right?
Exactly. You don't have to get shot at for this money either.
I like it. Welcome to the Real Estate and Financial Independence Podcast. This is Chad Carson. You can call me Coach Carson. Really excited today. I have a special guest, Mr. Maxwell. Max is the founder of Cash Homes Triad. It's a real estate company in the Winston-Salem area of North Carolina that buys and resells, get this, 10 to 15 properties every single month. And get this too, Max started his business just over 3 years ago. And correct me if I'm wrong, Max, but you had about $300 in the bank or so, something like that.
Yeah, I started with about negative amount of money in the bank, but yeah.
Negative. All right. Negative. Even better. All right. So you beat me. I think I had about $1,000 when I got out of college. So you're topping me on that one. And Max today has become one of the top home buyers in his area of North Carolina. But beyond that, he's also become known as somebody who shares what he knows, shares his journey on YouTube and Instagram, has a big following there. And I'm just excited to have you on the show, Max. It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for being here.
Chad, man, I appreciate you having me on, man. I really think it's going to be great.
Absolutely. So I've been looking forward to this. You know, we had a mutual friend or maybe a mutual guest introduced us, Shawn, McKay, I believe, from over at American IRA, and started checking your stuff out. And I said, man, this is a fellow deal maker. Like I got to go deep on putting deals together with Max, because that's been my favorite part of the business. You know, there's all sorts of things we could talk about. I mean, you've got a ton of knowledge that you can drop on people. I think our audience could hear some of this going deep on deal making, on the negotiating, on finding deals. I mean, you've been doing hundreds of deals a year, last couple of years. So if you're okay with that, let's go deep on some talking deals.
I would love to.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to go a couple of different directions with this, but let's start off with a scenario. Let's say, we may wave our magic wand, your business up in Winston-Salem is doing fine, but you decided you want a new challenge, and we're just going to drop you in a brand new city. It's going to be kind of a major urban area, so you have enough inventory to look at, but you just got to start over, and you got to go to this place with a limited budget. And I like to hear how your process would go if you had to be dropped in that new place. Because I think a lot of our audience, some are experienced, but some people, they get stuck in that kind of steps. And so I'd like to see what you would do in that scenario. If you had to make money, let's just say 60 days from now, you got to get dropped in a place, you got to start make some money and finding a deal. What would be some of the first steps you would take in a new location?
Well, Chad, I actually think about this quite a bit.
Nice.
Because, as entrepreneurs, we think, what if we lose it all? What if we wake up in the morning and we lose everything?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that's on my mind pretty good. So I have no problem answering this.
Sweet.
No
all right,
problem
good.
answering this question. So for me, if let's say I was dropped in any market, the first thing that I would go do is go to, I would use something like Liststream to find out where are the hottest zip codes that I need to be focusing on, right? Because I have a limited budget, so I don't want to be all over the city. And I don't want to waste all my time just driving everywhere. I need to find out where the active part of this metropolitan area is, or any part of the city. And at that point is when I would start driving. And once I'm driving, I'm going to be looking for active deals, people flipping stuff, and I'm going to get out and start talking to contractors. And the reason is a lot of times you're going to find buyers there. You're going to learn. The contractors know a lot of information because they're doing multiple properties for multiple people at a time.
Yep.
And first thing I'm going to start doing, I'm going to pull out my Deal Machine app, and I'm going to start driving around and finding anything that looks distressed.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have a real limited budget, I'm going to record all these. I'm going to download that file from Deal Machine, and I'm going to start using things like Free People Search or anything like that. I'm going to knock on doors, knock on neighbors' doors to get who is the owner of this property. And from there, you just start identifying problems other than the ones you physically can see. And you try to get a hold of the homeowner. And just a simple question. Hey, I was in your neighborhood driving around, and I think you may want to sell this house. Are you interested in receiving like a cash offer? And then the conversation in the Pandora box just opens from there. And it's up to you as a deal maker, deal finder, to try to see if this identifies this person's problem, and then see if you can solve it. And while you're solving it, make some money.
Love it. So let's take a step back there, because you mentioned a couple apps, which I know you use a lot in your business and you talk about. And one of them, going back to identifying your target market. So you're looking for something, you don't want the rural area that has like 10 sales a month or something. You're looking for some volume of activity. Is that right? Just somewhere where there's transactions happening.
Because I need to be looking at inventory that other people are going to buy because it's the hot market. You know how it is. One investor moves into a neighborhood, does 1 or 2 flips, and then all the other investors rush in.
Right.
So while they're there, you want to make sure you're getting things in those areas of that zip code that they have already deemed that it's good to flip in, good to resell. And they usually have prices available. If you look at the public record, well, hey, he bought it for this and he's selling it for this. And that can give you your basis, right? Your low point and your high point of a property.
Can you use something like Zillow? I mean, so the tool you mentioned, let's mention that one again, just so everybody knows what that is.
So originally I'm going to use the free tool on ListSource to find out the hottest zip codes. And essentially what it does is it goes in there and you can find out all the cash sales. And once you find the cash sales, it's going to itemize per zip code. And then you're just going to throw that in Excel and see which zip codes had the hottest cash sales in the last 90 days.
Got it.
And those are the top 5 or 10 zip codes I'm going to be driving around in.
Got it.
And I need to find a property that is physically distressed or some type of distress while I'm in that zip code.
You know what I love about that is, there's people who've probably written like PhDs on studying a market and, the dynamics of a market and this and that. And you can spend so much time thinking about it and studying it. What I like about that is just find where everybody else is doing it and just go there, right? Like don't waste time. Don't waste time trying to figure out the theory of like what's the demand and the supply. It's just go where people are simple. Doing transactions.
If there's a good fishing hole,
mm-hmm.
go fish in it until the fishermen say there's no more fish in there.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. All right. So we got a target market. It's kind of like we're farming. We got fertile ground there. There's some stuff happening in these zip codes. This is a new place to you. So you start driving around, which I also love like that. I totally related to that because I've been driving for dollars like 18 years, man. That's just like when I got out of college, got out of Clemson, I had my Toyota Camry, didn't have a place to live. I had to live in the spare bedroom of my friends' houses. And it's like, I can drive for dollars. I can get out and I can just drive around. So that there's nothing new to that, right? But it's like, it's so simple. You just got to get out in the market. You got to talk to people and meet contractors. That's an interesting one. So you talk to contractors because they're the ones inside the deals. They know the investors. They know that they got them on the Rolodex or their phone. They got the names and numbers of the people who are really players who are actually doing this. So is that the start of your buyers list? Is that where you go with that?
Yeah, because it's similar because your interest and the contractor's interests are aligned. Mm-hmm. If I approach the contractor in a way that solves some problems for him and say, hey, listen, I've got a couple properties that I think the guy you're working for might be interested in buying and flipping. Well, automatically thinks, well, great. If I give this guy mm-hmm. the buyer's number, I'm going to get more work. So our interests become aligned, and then that's simple. And I get the number. Hey, look, I got your number from Mr. Roofer here, and he says he's flipping one of your properties. I happen to be in this area, and I got a deal or two that you may be interested in looking at. But kind of tell me what exactly you're looking for so I don't waste your time by calling you or texting you with things that you're not interested in.
Yep. And just for people who are listening, who, I've got a wide variety of people. Some people are landlords, own 1 or 2 properties. Some people are wholesalers. But what we're talking about here is the beginning of a wholesale business, which maybe I'll let you explain it, Max, because what is, for people who don't know what that is, like what are you trying to do there, putting this buyer and the seller, what's the business model?
Well, it's pretty simple. There's a lot of properties out here that are distressed and are just sitting there. And typically most flippers and most investors are going to buy property from auction sales, foreclosures, and mm-hmm. those are tight deals. They're okay. It used to be a lot more plentiful in the days. Now banks are listing things and putting them back on the market. Mm-hmm. But there's these pool of properties that nobody knows how to get out and find because it takes grit, it takes a sales mentality, and it takes you to be able to be okay with the word no. And that happens quite a bit in our industry. And we find these properties by spending a lot of time and a lot of marketing dollars and a lot of hours identifying these people. And once we find these people, we put the property on the contract at a very discounted price. Now, what we do once we have the contract, we have what we call equitable interest. Now, one, we can go out and get private money and close on the property ourselves. Or two, we can simply assign our interest in that contract, that property, to somebody else that is willing to go do the flipping, the simple renovations, to have, a rental property, and they get a deeper discount than they would find it on foreclosure.com or any of these websites or sitting at the courthouse steps. It's a much simpler process, and the properties are way discounted more than you would find in any other place.
Got it.
And
so
we do this on a repeatable scale.
Yeah. So you're essentially like, there's other businesses that have a wholesale, businesses, the people, somebody, Walmart or the local store buys it from a big distributor, right? And there's other businesses. And so you're just being like the distributor or the wholesaler for landlords, for flippers, for people who want to get a discounted deal. You're doing the hustle and the hard work that they either don't want to do or can't do.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So back to our scenario where you're looking for this deal in 60 days. Day one, you're dropped in there, you're getting in your car, you got a tank of gas, you got your, I'm going to repeat these apps and I'll put them in the show description for everybody. You got your deal finder app, you got your list source, I think you said it was, to kind of study the market on anywhere and driven in your car. And the second thing is that how many people have you talked to about a property? And so I guess talk to me a little bit about that, because I think that's a hurdle, maybe just a conversation. Like when you go up, let's say you see somebody with a house, and there's a vacant house. Somehow you look up their phone number, you give them a call. What do we say to somebody who has a house? And I think you mentioned it earlier, but how does that conversation flow for people who haven't done that before?
A lot of people try to complicate this, and it's really easy. You identify who you are and what you do very fast in the conversation. Hey, my name is Max, and I'm a local real estate investor. You need to do that very quickly, because people are going to decide whether or not they want to talk to you in the beginning if you identify yourself.
Yep.
And then once you do that, say, hey, look, I happen to be driving around in that neighborhood, and I seen a property, and I was just wondering if you own property on 123 Main Street. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Oh, no, I don't. Okay, well, sorry, I got the wrong number. Do you know anybody that does own a property in that area? And they can give you a yes or no. But let's just say the person says, yeah, I actually do own a property there. Well, have you thought about, do you want to sell it? Because I'm looking to buy some properties in that area and just want to know if you're interested in a cash offer. It's going to go a couple ways. Yes, no, maybe. How the heck, why are you calling me? How'd you get my number? And depending on how that conversation goes, well, yeah, actually, I was thinking about it. Okay, well, is there a time where you can meet? Have you thought about, what it's worth to you? It's just a conversation. There is no right or wrong way to approach this. Just have a casual conversation as if you're talking with your uncle at a barbecue, and don't make it complicated, because people like to talk to people. They don't want to talk to salespeople. They don't want to talk to telemarketers. Just identify something local. You say, hey, look, I was driving around this neighborhood in Clemson, and, I've seen this property. You identified with something locally very in the beginning, where you're like, hey, look, Clemson or this street or something that everybody knows, right?
Yep. Absolutely. So you're a real person. You're not, you're not a robot. You're not somebody online. You're a real person named Max who happens to be in a neighborhood, and you just ask some questions. And so some of the questions what are some of the things you're trying to learn from them when you first talk to them? So obviously, they own the property. What else are we trying to learn? Yeah.
So once they tell me they own the property, look, what are you doing with it? And that opens up a Pandora box. Well, I used to have tenants in it. I haven't had tenants in it about 2 or 3 years. My last tenants tore it up. Well, have you thought about fixing it up and putting tenants back into it? No, I just really don't want to be a landlord anymore. Me and my brother inherited it from our mother. Okay, well, if you're not interested in being a landlord, you thinking about selling it? Yeah, we thought about it, but I just haven't really talked to my brother. Okay, so now there's 2 individuals that can make a decision about selling this property.
Right.
And you simply just say, hey, look, when is a good time for me to, see this property if you're interested in selling it? Or have you ever thought about, if you were to sell it, how much do you want to sell it for? And that's your first try to get an anchor price of where they're at.
Yep.
And once you ask some questions, hey, when's the last time you've been into property? It's been about 2 years. Well, when you were in it 2 years ago, what was the condition? Need updating and stuff like that. And I get them riled up with questions, and then I stop them. This is what I do. I say, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a local real estate. I buy about 2 or 3 houses a month if I can. And sometimes I hold on to property and sometimes I flip them. But lately I've been doing a lot of flips.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what that means. You've seen the TV show, HGTV. I got to get the property looking 2019 standard, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, yeah, I seen that. Well, what kind of repairs do you think this property needs to be able to get to a 2019? And be quiet. They'll rattle off this, that. Well, what do you think that'll cost? I don't know, maybe $30,000, $40,000. So now you have a repair estimate that they think.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation, so now you have what he thinks it might sell for, what it's worth. You think he now telling you, hey, it's about $30,000 in repairs. And now you're starting to calculate what he's actually thinking he might want to sell it for.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to say, hey, well, what do you want for the property? And just a conversation. Maybe they tell you, maybe they don't. It might be 2 or 3 conversations later, but you now open the gate that you validated yourself by saying what you do and who you are, and that you buy a couple properties and what your intent is. And it can go a couple ways.
I like it. I like the simplicity of that. So your goal is to introduce yourself. Sounds like your goal is to listen a lot, which I like. You're listening to them. You're trying to get them talking. And then your next goal is to understand where they are, what they're thinking about the property, hopefully a price. And is your goal to get an appointment at that point? You want somebody in your office to go out there and meet with them face to face, or is there another option from there?
Well, yeah, if I just got dropped in a city, that appointment's going to be me. And it's going to be, hey, Mr. Seller, when is a good time to meet you at the property?
Yep.
Oh, I don't know. Well, what can I go by and look at it by myself?
Mm-hmm.
And, that opens that box there.
There we go. Get that face-to-face appointment, get out to the property as fast as possible, right? Because that's where that's where the action happens. All right, good. All right, let's fast forward that. Oh, no, let me take a step back. So sometimes expectations don't meet reality, maybe with investors. So you get dropped in a city and, I'm there, I'm new. Is it going to be my second and third call that I'm going to get that appointment? Or am I going to how many people am I going to have to talk to actually get one that sounds like that, where I'm like, hey, that's interesting. That price sounds interesting. Or do I just go on every appointment? Like, how do I measure whether I should be going out to people's houses? And because I could be driving around town all day, right?
Yeah. If you're in the beginning, you need to be going on as many appointments as you can.
Yep.
And the reason is because it's going to sharpen your blade. And that blade is your ability to understand people, reason with them, and turn on your inner salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get a lot of no's, but that's okay, because that one yes, which may take you a month, which may take you 2 months, could be worth anywhere from $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, just depending. And that's not an average salary, monthly salary for anybody that works in America.
I like it. If you're new, get out there. Your education starts at those houses, right? You're at an appointment.
It's the best one.
You're out there
in the
learning.
Military,
right?
We call it OJT, on the job training.
On the job training. I need to take an aside there because I really didn't tell your backstory too much. I was excited about jumping right into deals, but just for people who are curious, because you're obviously competent in this business. You've been doing real estate. You've been doing real estate longer than 3 years. But yeah. Take us back to the beginning. You've been doing this your whole life? Did you just learn it? Like where'd you come from before this?
Yeah, so I'm a kid of 2 immigrant parents from Jamaica, and at 17 I went to the military, United States Air Force, and at 21 I ended my active duty, first round of active duty, and at 21 years old, I got my real estate license, became a realtor, and went to school back to back so I can open up my brokerage. My first year, I worked for a brokerage. Didn't really like the traditional buying and selling of other people's property. And then I went into property management and more working with investors that like to do buy and holds. Mm-hmm. Market crashed. So did my business. I thought it was the end of the world being that young. I didn't know what the heck was going on. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to California and started working in marketing companies and other places here and there. And then around the end of 2015, I came back home, flat broke, ran out of money, everything, and had to move in with my mother. And in 2016 is when I picked up and said, you know what, I need to do something. And I know a little bit about real estate. I want to be an investor because I seen how great investors live because I was working them years ago, mm-hmm. but I don't have any money. Mm-hmm. And I found out this word called wholesaling. Mm-hmm. And it took me 3 weeks of podcasts, YouTubes, everything I can get my hands on. And then I landed my first deal September 28th, 2016. And I never looked back since.
I love the first deal is memorable, right? I mean,
Never forget it.
you never forget that moment when that light bulb goes on and you're like, wait a minute, like how long would it take me working in the Air Force doing whatever else I'm doing to make $16,000?
Exactly. You don't have to get shot at for this money either.
I like it. Cool. Well, thanks for the background. Cause I think it's an amazing story. And I mean, we were talking about rejection with going out and meeting people, but the bigger part of your story, which I love, is that, there's rejection in the kind of the big picture too. You start a business and, if you get hit by 2007 and 2008 and you're a young business, I mean, a lot of times the people who make it through that are, there's a lot of luck involved, right? I mean, it's just, you got to be at the right place. You got to be at the right time. I know my business partner and I, we started in 2003 and 4, kind of when we really started getting into it. And we bought a bunch of properties in 2007. And, a lot of it was just stupid mistakes. We did some good deals too. We were flipping, but we just basically set aside a ton of cash. Like we just lived like college kids. And that's the only thing that got us through, like 2008, 9, 10, people moving out of properties, taking back owner financing deals. We didn't make any money for 2 or 3 years. We got out the other side. And really the only thing that, it's a little bit of an aside, but probably similar to what you found in your stories. The only thing that got us through that was cash reserves. And then number 2, having relationships with other people, which I think is exactly what you're talking about, is that we just valued our private lender relationships. We valued our seller financing relationships. And so when bad things happen, markets change, you kind of gather the wagons, talk to your team, talk to your lenders, say, here's what we got going on. We're going to keep renting these properties. We can't flip it right now. And that's, but there's also luck. I mean, so I guess that's my point there, just, lucky break here or there and things. All of us have to be ready for that entrepreneurial, just kind of know or challenge. And I just admire the fact that you've had those and you had this roundabout journey. You learned something from it, and here you are. And I got to think that makes you stronger when you go out and make offers to people. When you get that rejection 10 times, 20 times. I mean, has that experience been part of your kind of growing from there?
Absolutely. I mean, between coming out of the military and getting to the point where I am now, I've had 2 restaurants. I've had probably 8 or 10 other failed businesses that have taught me things to get to the point where I am, from the hiring process, how to build company culture, just all these things, accounting, books, taxes, all these things were taught to me in my previous businesses to get to the point where I am. So failure is a huge part, I think, of anybody that's successful. And if the market crashes again, or the market goes into recession again, I think you and I are going to be well aware what to do to make sure we come out on top again at the other side. I didn't come out on top, but it seems like you had a plan, and luck was on your side as well too.
We didn't have a good plan. I'll tell you. I mean, it's like there's more luck than anything else on there, I'm telling you. But, I definitely learned from it too, from the scars and from getting through that. And, but part of what I love about what you're talking about here, and is that whether you're in a down market, when things are it's a lot easier to buy stuff, or whether you're, right now, 2019, people are like, I can't find a deal in this market. I can't find a deal in this market. Well, I think the theme that I'm hearing from you that is working for you, which can work anywhere, is you can't just do the thing that everybody else is doing. Expect the same level of success. Don't mistake simplicity with difficulty.
That's correct.
Because what you're doing, what you're encouraging people to do, is to go out and talk to people. Imagine that. That's kind of a novel concept. And so you go out and talk to contractors, you go out and talk to sellers, and you don't just count on the MLS to find your deals. So let's talk about that a little bit more. I mean, obviously driving for dollars is kind of the first thing we talked about when you get dropped in this city. Is there any other tips you would have on finding these people who have a problem that you're trying to help solve? Is there any other way you go fishing for that kind of situation?
Yeah. So you brought up a big key word. And what I learned in my first 2 deals, after allowing the seller to just speak and spill their guts, is that I was really not buying their house. I was solving a problem. And at the end of that string happened to be a piece of property. So I learned very quickly, I'm starting to solve problems. The first deal I ever had, she inherited a property from her aunt. She tried to be a landlord. She put a friend in there. She got burned, and then it sat empty for almost a year because she didn't have the money to repair it, keep up with it. She lived about 45, 50 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, it was, hey, I want to get rid of this property. I can't afford the taxes on it. I can't repair it. And I want to take my kids on a great Christmas trip. And I had to solve all those problems for her. And at the end, she was okay with me being compensated as an investor for solving those problems. My second property was a guy that bought a fixer-upper, moved into it, and promised his fiance or his wife that he was going to fix it up, and never got around to the problems that needed to be fixed. So he was like, hey, I'm going to go buy another house with no other issues, and I just want to sell this one off. And that was my second deal. So between those two deals, I realized very quickly I'm solving problems.
Yep.
Now, my first deal was a probate, which means somebody inherited property, and it was tax delinquent. So when I put those two together, and it also had code violations for not being able to keep up with the grass in the yard and stuff. So I said, well, I'm going to reverse engineer my first deal and try to find other people that have the similar problem as my first seller. So the thing that I had to go educate myself on was probate. I had no idea what probate was. And just learning from YouTube and books, I said, okay, I now understand what probate is. And that gave me enough confidence to go down to our local probate office and start saying, hey, is there more people like this? Can I see some files? Lucky to know it's public information.
Mm-hmm.
And they just handed over these files to you. And I started fishing to reverse and try to find the same scenario as my first deal. And I came very proficient at tax delinquent and probates. And that got me to the point where I was doing 3-4 deals every single month, you know, clearing between $20,000 and $30,000 every single month very quickly. And I said, okay, a lot of this work is groundwork. It's very meticulous work that you have to do over and over and over again. I said, I need to hire somebody that can do this while I'm sleeping. So that was when I hired my first virtual assistant to do a lot of the Excel work and all that other stuff while I would be sleeping, so I can wake up in the morning and make those 200 phone calls throughout the day. But really fishing in those problem areas, identifying something that you want to be great at. And mine was tax and probate, and very became a student of it. Now you really have to like obsess with this problem so that you can learn how to solve it, versus being like a general practitioner doctor. If I only focused on fixing feet, you know, then I would be the best toe surgeon out there. And that's considered probate. And I can fix any arch or any heel in the business. And that was taxes. And I became obsessed with those two things and started finding out how to only solve those problems, how to identify them and how to solve them.
Did you ever run into discussing with other probate experts? Like, did you meet attorneys or other people who help families through it who could become referral sources for you for those kinds of properties?
So after doing a few deals, you start to run into the same probate attorneys that usually get a bulk of the business in whatever city you're in. And they start to realize, hey, this guy is actually solving a problem of my client. And I learned that these probate attorneys don't get paid until the case is closed. And I was able to help speed up that process because dissolving property was one part of a probate situation. And so, yes, I became friends with about 2 or 3 different attorneys, and they would say, hey, we have a client that's interested in selling their house. What offer can you make? Now, I didn't get a lot of business from them, but enough to where they knew I was a reputable source. And sometimes those referrals, which are free, came in on a clutch time when you were low at point or you just wanted to pick up extra properties.
Well, the other good thing about that, I'm sure you run, if they're the kind of the big player in town or big players, is that you're going to be talking to other people who are in probate. And if they ever have an objection, say, I'm not sure, I'm going to call my attorney. They call the attorney, whether they referred you or not. Hey, yeah, that's Max. We've met him. He's good. Right.
Absolutely. That's happened a couple of times, actually.
What I love about that is because I want to talk some about price and where we fit in the market as investors. But what I love about what you're saying is it sounds to me, we're craftsmen, like we are craftspeople who are getting good at a trade, and we're trying to figure out how to solve a problem. Just like a doctor who, does surgery on somebody's foot, just like somebody who makes somebody's shoes for them, just somebody, everybody who makes money, who in an ethical way, above board way, is adding value to the other person. And that's what you're doing. You're figuring out a problem. You're solving the seller's problem for a profit. And you don't try to hide that fact. Hey, I have to make money. I'm in business to make money. If my price isn't good for you, it doesn't work for you. Like, you can say no, there's nothing wrong with that. And you're being upfront about it, but you are making a profit for the craftsman, the skill set that you're building. And you are an expert. You're becoming an expert in that. So yeah, so I just want people to absorb that, because just because this stuff that Max is doing is repeatable and is simple, it's like the work is that you got to become that expert that he's talking about. Like, you can't, he said it in like one sentence, but going down to the probate office, learning that, becoming an expert, you can become an expert pretty quickly. I like your feedback on that, but you do have to pay your dues a little bit.
Yeah. I've stood up nights reading state statutes.
That's good reading. I'll put you
yeah. And I'm a terrible reader too. I'm dyslexic. So reading what attorneys write was just painful.
Oh man, that is painful.
So understanding the actual process of how the state or the counties are forced to handle foreclosures or tax foreclosures, it's all written in the code.
Yeah.
And the process that they have to follow is also written in the code. And because it's written in the code, I want to insert myself as early as possible in the problem. So like, if I was fighting breast cancer and I was a doctor that was obsessed with fighting breast cancer, the way you become the best breast cancer doctor is to identify the problem as early as possible. And that's what I did. I said, well, this piece of paperwork is the first sign of any public record that there's a problem here. I need to contact the person at that point, and I need to keep following up until the problem becomes so much that they have to get it fixed.
I love it. Very good. Become the doctor of real estate investing. There's another, get you another nickname, Max.
I need it.
Very good. Okay. So I think a lot of people listening, and there's gonna be different people. Some are going to be wholesalers, and they're going to say, I want to model this. I want to be the person who goes out and finds the deal consistently and does the volume of this. That's one business model. Other people are going to use this information, and they're just going to say, I just need 3 deals this year to build my wealth. I'm going to do this as a side hustle. But either way, I think there's a common mentality that I run up against from new investors on this issue of, we as an investor are buying a property, typically at a lower price than what the market value would be, because we got to make a profit on it. So that the common objection I get, and I want to see what you say on this, is, why would they do that? Why would they sell a property to us at this price that we can make $20,000 on, $25,000 on? Like, are we pulling wool over their eyes, or that we tricking them? Or if not, like, how does that value chain work? Like, why is that a viable option to sell to us as investors when, hey, there's a real estate agent over here who might be able to consult with them and sell their property?
Yeah. I call it the pawnshop mentality, and it's nothing wrong with that. What happens is people are okay with getting a fair price fast. You could kind of think like, if you go out and buy a TV on Friday, and 2 weeks later you forgot that rent's due. You bought $1,000 TV, and now you need to get rid of that TV. First thing you're going to try to do is put it on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and get, roughly where your money is. $700 TV, it's $1,000. I barely used it. But if one of your friends or somebody comes to you and say, hey, Chad, that TV, I'll give you $500 for it. I know you got it for $700, but I got cash here. If the problem is hard enough and you're there to solve that problem, they'll sell it to you. It was weird at first for me to understand that people will sell property as if it was like a TV or anything else. I didn't grow up with people, friends and family having a bunch of houses, so it wasn't normal to me. But it is very much so that people have a lot of property that they just don't want, can't afford, or no longer need. And you may see it valued at one way, and they may see it valued somewhere else. And the thing about real estate, or really any business, things sell at market price. So if they think that they want this amount of money for the property and they can get it, they're going to sell it because it's a hassle-free type sale.
Yep. And that's really how you portray it. When you're talking to a seller, I mean, I think I heard one of your negotiations on YouTube or something where you just told the seller straight up, like, I got to make a profit on it. Here's the price I can make a profit. If you can do better than that, that's cool. But like, here's my price.
Yeah. One thing I learned from a real estate sales coach, John Martinez, is when you first get into the actual meeting is just say, hey, I'm okay with you saying no. You're asking me to give you a price on what I would pay for this. And this is that. And the reason why, and I like to explain, hey, look, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. I have a holding cost. And sometimes my buddies may just come and buy this deal for me where I don't do anything, you know, and it's pretty simple. Some people will never wrap their head around it, but it's just the concept of you selling a car or, you know, a trading card, a baseball trading card. That value of that is whoever wants to get rid of it. If they're okay with that price, it's up to them. And a lot of people just don't like, you know, go back into the real estate side, real estate agents. When I was a real estate agent, I would never list a house that I'm wholesaling now, because the mentality of an agent is, oh, well, you got to do this repair, that repair before I list this property. And most people know that. So they don't even call a real estate agent on that type of property.
Yep. So we solve a different need for a certain price.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm interested from your standpoint. So we talked about price from the seller standpoint. So you as an investor, do you have a simple way or a way that you can evaluate the price that you can pay that you make money on it? Or do you have to use a fancy spreadsheet? Like how do you think about value from you to be able to make a profit?
So from the wholesaling side, to buy it as a wholesaler, I use a real simple formula. And the start of the formula is very important. If you know the actual after repair value of that property, then everything is pretty simple. My market, I would call it a middle of the road market. It's not hot. It's not cold. It stays consistent. It grows at a gradual pace every year. And I like that. So if I can see a house that's worth $100,000 fixed up, I'm simply going to remove 30% from the value of that house. So now we're at 70,000. And that value that you're removing really depends on your market. Sometimes you're only removing 20% for hot markets, sometimes 15 in the very hot markets. So you remove that value and now we're down at $70,000. There's a repair cost on that property. Let's just say it's $20,000. So I know that I have to put $20,000 to fix it. Okay, now we're down to 50. So now I know as a flipper, I can buy it at 50. As a wholesaler, I need to buy it anywhere below 50 so I can sell my rights to the contract to a flipper. And that can be 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, whatever the negotiating price. If I walk into a house, that same house that's 100,000 and the seller says, give me 35, I'm not going to argue with them and say, no, I can give you 50. You know, nobody does that if they're okay with the $35,000 price that they threw out.
Got it. I like that. 70%, you subtract your repairs. And if you're a wholesaler, you subtract your profit. And there you go. That's the kind of math you can do. Your calculator on your phone, you can do it back of the napkin, maybe if you got it, you know, something like that.
Exactly. Keep it simple.
Cool. Man, you've been dropping some knowledge bombs, man. Max, this is good stuff. And I think people are going to feel more confident about negotiating. There's obviously a lot more to learn, but that's why they got you. That's why they got your YouTube channel, right? They're going to check you out.
That's why they got you, coach.
I'm going to help them out too. I want to transition a little bit back to your business and what you're doing. You're doing some awesome stuff, flipping a lot of houses. So have you ever thought about, or what, I'm sure you've thought about it, but like, what does it look like for you kind of making that transition from the active wholesaler business, flipping, making money to the wealth building, long-term game? Like what's your long-term game with real estate, and how does that?
Yeah. So when you start learning actual wealth building principles, it's a whole nother side to everything, right? So I take my active income, which is wholesaling and flipping, and I buy things that give me passive income. So, for example, at the end of this year, I'm buying buying a 12-unit apartment complex in December. And then January 2nd, I'm buying a 20-unit apartment complex. So I have 32 units. This is my first 2 apartment complexes. And the reason why we're buying it in January is the seller doesn't want
Taxes.
the actual taxes in this year. They want it for next year.
I understand.
So we're going to sell it. We're going to buy it January, and I'll have 32 units. And I haven't decided if I'm going to do it all cash or raise the money or just put down the 30% needed to go to the bank. I have different options. I just haven't weighed them out yet. I know at the end of the day, I can put the money down and pull it out if I need to. But building wealth is just a whole different principle. I would say no matter how wealthy I get, I will never stop the wholesaling business because it allows me to cherry pick the absolute best deals possible that come so I can continue to build my wealth even at a faster pace.
I like it. So you're getting welcome to the multi-unit game. You're getting in those apartments. You're
getting my feet wet, man.
Back to it, man. Well, let me know. That's my game. I've kind of made the transition from, I haven't done as much wholesaling lately. You kind of got me excited though. I'm starting thinking, man, I got all these people here locally bringing me deals. I could help them do their wholesaling. But yeah, we made more of a transition to buy and hold multi-unit properties, mainly college town because we're in, Clemson. So that's our game. And it is a different mentality. I found that the thing when I was wholesaling a lot and flipping houses a lot, I felt like you could always correct a mistake by just flipping another house. All right, man, I messed that one up. I made less of a profit. Let's go flip another one, make some money back. Yeah. Sometimes on those buy and hold deals, the ones that ate me up in 2007 and 2008 was, all right, I'm stuck with this thing. I used to compare it to like, I got like chewing gum on the bottom of my shoe. Like, and this thing with this house would not go away, or this property would not go away because I bought it wrong, because the income is not what I thought it was, or I bought in the wrong location. So it's a little bit, it's a long game in terms of just thinking about, it's the same principles, but yeah, if you buy low, but the financing, I think is one of the big things I've learned. And I'm curious how, in all the negotiations you do out there, when you're talking to sellers, have you come across situations where, you've made that cash offer, maybe that is not their preference, but they would be willing to do something maybe a little bit higher price, but take a creative terms, maybe seller financing, something else like that?
I love it. One of the things that I'm do a lot now is subject to properties. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really fit in your wholesale calculator. It doesn't really make sense to buy it all cash, but a little bit money down, collect the deed, continue to make the mortgage payments, and collect the actual difference in the cash flow is a great way we do things. I love the creative deals. It's really what creative deals is what took me kind of over the top. Like you can wholesale. I never really wanted to I can wholesale $1 million worth of fees a year or more, but having that creative calculator, another tool in your tool belt, allows you not to throw away so many leads that come into your business. I mean, we spend close to $30,000 a month on marketing. Now, a lot of people say, some people are going to say that's a lot. Some people are going to say that's not a lot. But keep in mind, I also own like a data company. I also own a lot of software that simplifies and makes things very cheap. So $30,000 to me is probably around $60,000 to $90,000 a month for somebody else. But finding these deals and being able to use different exit strategies on them is really what took me to the next level. Now, anybody watching this or listening to this that hasn't started, don't worry about that side of the business. Don't worry about it. Yeah, exactly. Just go make that money. Turn the ATM on with the wholesaling.
Yep. But it's that where you take it to that next level, where you get from first base to second base, you start saying, all right, I can start getting some triples and home runs here by making money on the price, making money on the terms, making money ongoing for the rest of my life.
Well, when you do creative deals, you start to sit back and you start to look at your portfolio and you say, holy crap, I'm worth a lot of money here. Mm-hmm. Or you just could acquire something so cheap that adds so much upside to your net worth instantly. And that's what I love about creative financing. Cool, man.
Next level stuff. All right. Well, I want to start moving towards wrapping it up. A lot of my listeners are part of something called the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. Is that something you're familiar with? Heard anything about it?
I love it. I'm not, but I'm on the same path.
Cool, man. Well, I love the game. I love talking shop. I love talking the business. It's not something I plan on stopping doing, like owning real estate, doing it. But I like to ask people, a big part of the theme of my website, my podcast, is this idea of doing what matters, like figuring out, working it backwards from the end and saying, all right, I've got this game of making money. I'm trying to build wealth. I'm turning properties. But what is it that drives me? Like, what is it that matters to me? Sometimes it's hey, I want to change this in the world. Sometimes I just want to be there with my kids. I'm just curious for you, like what kinds of things, just of people who are fans of yours or new fans of yours, like what kind of things motivate you big picture wise? Like what do you want to see happen?
Well, for me, my why and my big motivation is not the same as a lot of people in this business. I don't have kids. I'm not married. So for me, and I don't live a crazy lifestyle either. For me, I say this a lot. I feel like other people need me to be rich. And that could be the charity down the street, the church down the street. I'm starting a nonprofit where I've acquired a horse farm where I'm taking inner city kids out to the ranch where they can learn disciplines by learning to teach horses and take care of horses. Family members need me to be there. Other people, the wealth of information that I have that I'm giving away, other people need it. So for me, it's more of a movement of a culture and a movement of our young generation to really understand that, okay, the 30-year job with the pension and the retirement is really not our path. That was our parents' path, our grandparents' path. Let me show you how easy it is to go out here and create wealth and live whatever lifestyle you want. You can wholesale 5 deals a year, pick up 2 rentals, and live in a van and travel the country if that's what you want to do. Or you can go out and buy any fancy, nice car or whatever your dream is, whatever makes you happy. I can show you how to obtain that through real estate and building wealth. And I know you got good friends because you have Shawn McKay as a friend. So I know you're on some great wealth building practices. And, he's helped me and taught me some of that stuff as well. And learning that, I think there's a big gap in our generation that didn't get that information passed on to them from their parents because either they didn't know or it was just conversations they didn't have. We're in an information age, and it's time for us to empower ourselves with this information so that we can build our own future on however we want it to look like. And I think for me is just empowering people that typically wouldn't be empowered is really like my drive and my fire.
I love that. That's powerful. You're on the way, Max. You're doing an awesome job, and I'm just glad that my audience is getting to introduce to you, and you just dropped a lot of knowledge on us that I know we're going to use. Can you let people know I know they're going to want to follow along with you and catch up with you? Where can they find you outside of this podcast?
Man, I have a YouTube channel. If you just type in Maxwell, please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I don't have much time left. Same on Instagram. Search Maxwell, you'll find me. And just follow me, and I'll I do lives. I pop up in cities. I do that quite a bit. I put like 250,000 miles on a plane this year, just popping up in cities and talking real estate and talking about wealth building practices. So just follow me anywhere you can, and I'll try to keep dropping the knowledge and answer as many questions as you got.
We could do a pop up in Clemson. So let me know.
I'm
happy to meet up.
After the new year, I'm coming.
Let's do it. Anytime, bud. All right. Well, thanks for your time, Max. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Max as much as I did. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, and you won't miss anything in the future. Really appreciate you being here today. Hope you'll watch some other videos that I have for you, and I'll see you next time in a new video.